Good evening, San Luis Obispo. You are listening to Living the Run. I am your host, Rex Stevens, sitting aside, former Olympian, and according to last week, the marathon goddess said, the best voice in studio, Mr. Paul Terek.
Don't forget to add, I didn't share this with you because I didn't want to be heckled, but Ryan and I used to play basketball in a league in AG, and Ryan has since moved away and quit our team. But our team went on to win the championship for our division. It was a lowly division. You know, we obviously weren't in the minor league or semi-pro division, but I think it was like 90 and over league. We somehow skated into that, and we eked out a victory in the championship game. Good competition. You missed it, Rex, but we are the litter getters. Myself and Ben Green. He was a former guest on the show, and the rest of the team is all made up mostly of California Parks Rangers. You may see them out at Lopez or out on the dunes or wherever. So we managed to take home the trophy.
Well, hey, that's tremendous, Paul. It sounds like a really neat team effort too. It's kind of interesting though. You going from Big Ten champion at Michigan State to the Olympics in 2004, and the thing you seem to be most proud of here lately, rec league hoop in AG.
It's not what have you done, it's what have you done lately, Rex. That's what's important, and it was the rec league, the D3 actually, not even 1 or 2 or some other segmented division, but the Division 3 champion. So what have I done lately? That's what it was.
Well, it's not.
When was the last championship you won, buddy? Was it since Monday?
I suppose you have to participate to have won a championship, and I'm not currently in a rec league. Maybe if a roster spot opens there, Paul, you'll get me on.
Dude,
do you have Paul?
We won the championship. We don't have any open spots, man. Our spots are full with winners, not with spectators.
In case you get a retiree or another
an injury or retiree, we may let you know.
Yeah, or another.
I'll pencil you in. Probably behind Max, though, because I'm going to be honest, Max looks pretty quick.
Well, let's make sure that we get Max in. We're also joined in studio, of course, by our great producer, Max Woodcock. Max, you on any rec league teams?
Not since college.
Not since college. He's not participating either. Hey, let's get right to the show. We're going to have a great show here today for you listeners. You can always follow us on livingtherun.com or find us on Facebook and Twitter.com. But we're going to be talking brain health tonight. It's a big topic in the news right now. We're seeing concussions in the sporting world. We hear more about childhood issues. We're hearing about depression at a high. And so we've got a functional neurologist out of Dallas, Texas, done some absolutely amazing work internationally as well as nationally to talk what's the latest going on in brain science, how can we treat these things effectively, and more importantly, how can we get the maximum out of our brains. He's going to be followed by a scout from the NHL, the Washington Capitals, AJ Taves, who's just going to be talking about some of the changes that we're going to be seeing here, not only at the NHL level and how we're treating these things and how we're trying to protect against them, but what about our youth? Paul, I know you've got a son, and I've got 2 sons, and I know a lot of us are concerned about the health of our children's brains and what we can be looking for as parents to protect that and to preserve that and to help maximize our kids as they keep growing up.
I think the thing to keep in mind here is when you look at the 1980s, the 70s and 80s football player. These were some of the greatest athletes in the U.S., and you look at them, and they were big, and they were cut, and they had muscles, but they weren't the specimens that you see today. They weren't the guys, if you had a guy in the league that could run like 4.4 or 4.5, and he was like 6 foot and 210 pounds, he was an incredible athlete, And now you look at it, and you got a guy that's like 6'4", 240, and he's got 5% body fat, and he's running he's running 4.4, he's running 4.3 or something. There's more mass moving a lot quicker out there, especially on the football field, on the hockey rink. So that's one of the things to take into consideration, and it's happening at a younger level. You look at some of these high school kids now, and they're like grown men.
Absolutely. Even the junior high kids now and the high school kids are constantly concerned about the latest supplement, the latest thing to take to try to improve that performance, to get, like you said, you get that extra tenth of a second off of their 40 to increase that bench press or that squat. And we just got to start to wonder, and hopefully we can ask Dr. Brandon Brock about this, is, what about these supplements? Where may they be having their toll? What about some of even some of the illegal things that have been used at the higher level? How may they impact these nervous systems and these brains as guys are aging and moving forward?
I'll try to stay on topic with this because this is one of my biggest pet peeves in track and field. But at the high school level, you got to look at it like this too. There is so much riding on the line for a good high school athlete. If he was a great high school athlete, scholarship opportunities, you go to college and you dominate. I mean, the professional contracts they have now, millions and millions of dollars. There is so much riding on the line at the high school level and so much pressure that these kids are willing to do whatever it takes to get there. And unfortunately, they're not looking down the road and saying, well, that's fine, but if I'm out there dropping my head and dropping my shoulder on every hit and I'm taking a beating every game, where's the trade-off? And, it's somebody's got to step in at some point and say something. Because the thing is, at the high school level, they don't test. They do not test at the high school level, at least that I'm aware of. Last I knew, there was talk of it, and then it became the whole well, he's a minor, you'd have to have his parents' permission and then privacy laws and everything else. And they've never been able to develop a rigorous testing program at the high school level.
Absolutely. And, one thing that's always bothered me is a lack of distinction between performance and longevity. We look at different types of exercise, we look at different sports, athletics, different ways of using nutrition, and oftentimes they're used to enhance performance, but they're not used to enhance longevity, and nobody's getting the idea that they may be sacrificing their long-term health
but who cares
for the sake of performance.
But who cares, because you sign you get a $10 million signing bonus, $10 million, I mean, how much money is that over the course of your lifetime? You're never going to earn that. If you get a job that makes $100,000 a year, good luck making $10 million.
Yeah, but the percentage of those is very small. I heard about
but the chance to achieve that everybody buys lottery tickets. The percentage to win is small, but how many people buy it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a linebacker at Ohio State apparently just decided to not keep his tryout with the Cleveland Browns because he has had one concussion at Ohio State and said he doesn't want to keep risking more. But see, he's got an opportunity to go to law school. His father's a lawyer. He's got a setup for him. But how many people are we talking there, Paul? I mean, we're talking about a very, very minute percentage. And again, I just think that we can do things better not to sacrifice our young, sacrifice our youth, and especially when we're talking about their health, nervous system, brain.
I totally agree with you. What it's going to boil down to, though, is, you look at the general public and you look at a lot of people that are willing. How many people still smoke? How many people are, compulsive drinkers? And it's like they can't say no to those simple things, and it's proven that those are bad for them. There's no study out there that says, a cigarette every now and then, probably good for you. There is no study, but people still do it.
Well, yeah,
and the studies on concussions and all the neurologists, they get together, and there is still there's a lot of gray area out there that people will say, I don't want to believe that it's bad, so I'm going to grab onto this. I'm going to grab onto this rope over here, and I'm going to, yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. Take a salt tablet, walk it off. You'll be fine. No, it's okay. Your memory will come back tomorrow, son.
But the Living the Run listener, Paul, is much above the average here, and
his radio dial is broken, and he's waiting to hear that update scores.
And the Living the Run listener is dying to hear more information about not only how to perform better, but really how to preserve themselves, how to increase longevity, how to increase aging in such a way that they maintain that quality of their life. And that's what we again expect to talk to Dr. Brock about is what are the things that we can do, and what can we expect out of different therapies and so forth to maintain that longevity and to achieve it at a very high level.
Yeah, it's going to be great to get the information. A lot of it, like you said, people don't know, and the listeners are tuned in for this, and it'll be good information for them because, like you said, I have a son, you have two. There's a lot of parents out there kind of wondering about this, thinking, man, maybe it's not a big thing, but really, for the chance that your kid might get a scholarship, maybe to play football or to play hockey or get involved in. They had a thing on TV about women's soccer players that were getting concussions, from heading the ball so much, and it's for that small opportunity. Is it really worth risking their mental capacity later on?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, actually, it looks like Dr. Brock is going to be calling in here in just a moment. So we're going to take a quick break. I wanted to let you know, we're going to have at the end of the show or towards the end of the show, we're going to have a trivia question as well. And you're going to get a chance to jump into Jaffa Cafe. You know, Jaffa Cafe has joined here with the Living the Run. And for those of you that don't know, it's been voted #1 best Mediterranean food for 5 years in a row, new to New Times Readers Poll. You know, you want a shawarma, you want a little gyro, a little baklava over there. Adnan is the most unbelievable guy, and he said, hey, $20. I asked him, hey, do you think you could give away a wrap, a gyro, something? He says, no, what we'll do is we'll give $20 gift cards to your winners on your show. He goes, that way not one person comes in but two. This is the kind of guy he is. He lives the run at the highest level, and I'm excited about this. So listeners, towards the end of the show, get a chance to win $20 to Jaffa Cafe.
Yeah, he's like a drug dealer. First one's free. First one's free. Come on in. First gyro's free. Oh, yeah, on the house. I'll see you tomorrow.
Hey, guys, back in moments with Dr. Brock. We're going to talk cool brain science here on Living the Run.
You're listening to Living the Run on ESPN Radio 1280 The Ticket.
Hey there, you've reached Claire. Leave me a message.
Claire, it's Ann. Hey, you know that hormone balancing product we talked about before? The all-natural one, Amberen? Well, I gotta tell you this. Not only did Amberen stop my hot flashes, but since I started the Amberen program, I have lost so much weight. Seriously, even my belly fat, it's gone. I haven't been this thin in years. I feel great. Give me a call.
The leading cause of weight gain in women over 40 is hormonal imbalance. Until you balance your hormones, it can be practically impossible to lose weight. Amberen restores hormonal balance naturally, so the weight can just fall off. Yes, even that stubborn belly fat. Plus, Amberen eliminates other symptoms of hormonal aging too. So with your hormones in balance, you can feel great and finally lose the weight. Be one of the first 50 callers right now, and they'll send you a complimentary risk-free trial with a 30-day supply. Free. Call 1-800-894-8776. That's 1-800-894-8776. 1-800-894-8776.
In a world full of artificial this, genetically modified that, and virtually simulated everything, there's thankfully still an appreciation for the real deal. I'm referring, of course, to the BMW 3 Series, the one car and driver named to their 10 best list a record-breaking 20 consecutive years. The one that's faster and more powerful than the A4, the C300, and the IS250. The one that includes no-cost maintenance while those others do not. And the only one that deserves to be called the ultimate driving machine. So celebrate the real deal. The 3 Series at a BMW Center today. Claim based on published 3 Series sedan and competitors 0 to 60 in horsepower. For ultimate service details, call 1-888-3114-BMW.
Come purchase one today at BMW of Santa Maria, the Highline dealer on the Central Coast. Online at bmwsm.com.
Michelob Ultra asked, what's your ultra life?
Climbing pyramids in Guatemala.
We got married in the run-through wedding chapel.
A zip line ride over a 400-foot canyon. About 25 feet from me was a black bear.
The ultra life is different for everyone, but there's one common thread. It's about getting out and having fun. And Michelob Ultra helps you do just that. With one exceptionally smooth taste, only 95 calories and 2.6 carbs, Michelob Ultra is perfectly balanced to fit your life and all you want to get out of it. What's your ultra life? Tell us on Facebook.com/Michelob Ultra and live life to the ultra. Here's Wes from Chicago.
Every year, 16 of my college buddies get together for a golf bonanza.
And Amy from San Diego.
I just recently hiked the Grand Canyon.
Enjoy responsibly. Michelob Ultra Light Beer. 95 calories, 2.6 grams carbs, 0.6 grams protein, and 0 grams fat per 12-ounce serving. Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri.
We're back with Living the Run.
Welcome back to Living the Run. Thanks for joining us. We are talking brain health today, and we are super jazzed to be joined by one of the top functional neurologists both nationally and internationally. This is a guy I've heard many times lecture, when I was back in Texas, but Dr. Brandon Brock is a guy that's been teaching this neurology stuff on a top level. He's spent a lot of time in Europe now, but he's treating anything from pediatrics to cardiology to neurology. Dr. Brock, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, guys. How you doing? It's great to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, let's just start with this. In the news, Dr. Brock, it's just absolutely amazing. All kinds of conjecture with regards to what's going on in brain health these days. And, it starts right now in the news. It seems to be around those physical athletes that are football players, hockey players, even soccer, as Paul was mentioning earlier, taking the head trauma, the repeated head trauma, and then having some pretty ill effects down the road years later. What can we make of all this stuff?
Well, these guys are becoming definitely aware. You got a lot of people that invest money in these athletes. They invest a lot of time themselves in becoming good athletes. They get an injury, they take a blow to the head, and whether it be immediate or 4 or 5 or 6 or even 10 or 12 years down the road, we're starting to see some, and people are becoming vocal about it, so you're starting to see a lot of bad things that are kind of coming up in the media. It's really nothing new, but people are realizing that this is something that needs to be addressed, especially in some of the local small cities where you're seeing a lot of high school athletes that are getting, brain injuries. They got their whole life ahead of them. They can't think the same way. They can't go to college. They can't function, and they become very, very debilitated. And so there's a lot of people that are becoming aware of this. There's a lot of people that are just sort of coming to the conclusion that there has to be a heightened level of awareness, and people have to be informed of the possible things they may face down the road with some of these high-impact injuries. And so that is kind of some of the stuff that's kind of come about. And some of the treatments are just sort of like, well, let's just live with it. And they're finding out now that there's lots of things. We've been doing lots of things where maybe you can make a difference in brain function so that you don't have so much disability. And that's where a lot of the interest is coming in with these professional athletes. It's kind of been a hush-hush deal. It's like I'm a professional athlete. I've had a brain injury. I don't really want this to, leak out because I can't let it happen to my career. Some of these guys are now coming out because they realize there's people that can actually help them. And that's where there's also been a lot of interest as well.
Well, hey, take us through some of that therapy change. I mean, what's changed in the realm of therapy? I know Sidney Crosby was kind of a big high-profile guy out of the NHL that was having problems up there in Pittsburgh, and it almost kind of seemed like the medical crew was at a loss at one point. But then it sounded like he had gone down to Atlanta, started some new therapies, actually with Dr. Terek. I know a guy that you've worked very closely with. What's changing there? How are we making some of those changes that you're talking about and not having to settle with, just live with it?
Yeah, there's two worlds when it comes to brain health. I mean, if you get a bad head injury and you have a skull fracture or you have a, internal bleeding or you have something that needs to be dealt with, in the emergent situation, you go to the ER, you go get things done so that, you can save your life. But then there's sort of this after effect where, the MRI doesn't really show anything, but physiologically people are debilitated, okay? And so there's tons and tons of athletes that are in that category. They just functionally don't work the same way anymore. The brain is really interesting because it's like this organ that has these plastic properties to it. And what I mean by that is it's functional. It can upregulate function or it can downregulate in function, and different portions of the brain can function differently after a head injury, yet nothing shows up on imaging. And what we found through functional neurology are different types of therapeutic, I guess you could say, interventions, is that we're figuring out ways to find out certain parts of the brain that just don't work the same way anymore, and then stimulating them to sort of bring them back online so the brain as a whole functions better. So an athlete may have, better balance. They may get their coordination back. They may get their fine motor skills back. That is something different than the traditional medical community has kind of done. And a lot of the traditional medical community, once they've sort of gone through that acute situation and they know that, somebody's going to live after a traumatic brain injury, they're just kind of like, okay, you're going to resolve. Let's put you in a dark room, give you some sunglasses, and just let you rest. And we're finding that when we engage them in certain physical activities and activate certain parts of their brain at a rate that they can tolerate, that they start to function better. and they start to gain some of their skills back. And that's just sort of the rehabilitation that we've been doing with brain. I mean, trying to put it in sort of a simplistic point of view, and it's been working. It's been working very, very well.
Now, Doc, is this a time sensitive issue? I mean, obviously, you want to try to fix the problem and prevent future problems as soon as possible. But let's say you have a concussion in high school, you have 2 concussions in high school, you go through a couple of years, maybe you graduate college, and you just know that man, I'm a little cloudy still. There's some things going on. Is this something you can go back later on and and have checked out and start to regain function back?
Yeah, I would say that's yes, yeah. And here's the really interesting thing, that when we're looking at brain science and some of the newest literature on concussion and traumatic brain injury, we find that there's certain different cell types in the brain. You've got neurons, and you've got glial cells, and you have a blood-brain barrier. You have all these different components. But there's these things called glial cells, and they make basically these chemicals that create inflammation, okay? And these guys, once somebody gets a head injury, these glial cells become primed. So you have a head injury, they create inflammatory substances. It helps with the healing process, but it can also do some neurological damage. Well, these cells get sensitized every time you get a head injury. So you get a head injury, they get sensitized, then you're more prone for another head injury, and then another head injury. And what happens is, let's say you now get an infection, or you get the flu, or you get a stomach bug, or you get something else that creates inflammation in the body. Now it causes these glial cells to reactivate, and you become chemically reconcussed and get symptoms just like you had during your initial traumatic brain injury insult. So people who aren't treated appropriately over a certain period of time, their threshold for reconcussion or traumatic brain injury-like symptoms gets much, much more narrow. Of course, some people are a little bit more prone for this than others. But we're finding all kinds of cool things in the literature. We're finding all kinds of cool things in research. And we're finding that through nutrition and through things that have an anti-inflammatory sort of concept to them, and by activating the brain at a rate that's kind of appropriate for that individual, that we can start to regain a lot of function in these people. And it's really outside of the world of medicine. There's not really a lot of medications that do it, and there's really no surgical procedures that do it. And it's not that those things aren't important, but looking at it from kind of a team approach, there's really kind of a place for everybody. And so I guess to answer your question is, it is appropriate to get treatment early on so that you don't get a person that narrow of that margin of reactivation gets closer and closer and closer as they go through their lives.
I've heard, we're talking to Brandon Brock, Dr. Brandon Brock out of Dallas, Texas, a functional neurologist. Dr. Brock, I've heard you say a couple times now what the patient can tolerate or what a person can tolerate. I've heard you before lecture and use the term kind of metabolic capacity of maybe those nerve cells. How are we judging that stuff? And when you say the medicines seem not to be treating it all that well, surgery not all that well in these functional cases, what are we doing to assess that tolerance patient to patient? What are some of these types of therapies that you might be using, and what can people look for in healthcare practitioners around their area that might be able to assist in this kind of stuff?
Well, that's a good question, and everybody has a metabolic capacity. I mean, your brain has to have several things in order to function appropriately. I mean, it has to have activation. Brain cells have to be activated through movement or through stimulation. If you take that away, the brain will, basically start to deteriorate, and it will basically disconnect. We know that. There's a lot of studies that show that. The other thing is, you have to have fuel, not just activation, but you have to have fuel. That means you have to have good oxygen supply, you have to have good blood glucose, you have to have the ability to metabolize fuel the right way. So here's kind of what we found. From a metabolic point of view, somebody has to have, you have to be able to correct blood sugars and dysglycemias. If somebody has dysfunction in that, those things need to be corrected. They can be sort of a compounding factor to somebody with a head injury. If somebody has a problem with carrying oxygen, so if they're anemic, that might compound it. If they have some sort of, respiratory type of situation where they have asthma, bronchitis, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, like in the elderly, that might compound getting, fuel to their brain. Certain people are just genetically more prone to inflame. Certain people that have autoimmune conditions, or if they have inflammatory bowel disease, there's a lot of literature that shows that people that have inflammatory bowel disease, whether they have a gluten intolerance or they have some sort of inflammatory condition, they can get a lower threshold. So one of the things that's important is being able to assess your patient, not just from their neurological capacity, but then saying, what are the other things within their healthcare tree that could compound inflammation, deterioration, and, kind of mess with fuel and activation. And so whenever you're looking for somebody to sort of treat a patient or to treat you if you have a head injury, you need to kind of find somebody who can deal with all those concepts and give you, like, the big picture for your health.
Hey, take head injury out of it for just a second. I mean, we were talking about performance versus longevity. I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is when we get into, you use the term dysglycemic, we talk about the mess that we've got with obesity and type 2 diabetes. Just take the average person. What's it doing to their brain?
Well, it's like this. Everybody over time is going to have a little bit of brain deterioration. I mean, once you hit about the age, 28 to 35, your ability to make ATP within cells is going to go down. So, I mean, it's an inevitable process. But if you take that person that's been dysglycemic and inflamed for a significant period of time, they're going to slide downhill faster. Probability, okay? If you take somebody that has a lot of oxidative stress, has a terrible diet that's pro-inflammatory, and is, very, very deficient in good foods, then they run a higher probability of sliding downhill faster. So again, just like you said, take traumatic brain injury out of it. Let's just say any other neurodegenerative disease, whether it be somebody who's genetically prone for Parkinsonism, or they're genetically sort of, prone for Alzheimer's disease or dementias, all of these people are running the risk at an earlier onset and a greater magnitude of disease if they live their life in a way that is just reckless and destroying fuel and creating a pro-inflammatory diet. If they live like that through their 30s and 40s and 50s, I mean, they're sort of setting themselves up for, a higher incidence of all these neurological diseases that are becoming more and more and more common.
One of the things that seems tough out there to me, and again, we're talking to Dr. Brandon Brock out of Dallas, Texas, a functional neurologist, talking brain health here, is you mentioned a couple times in the terrible diet. One of the things that seems to bombard people, including our listeners, is you just need to get your brain healthy. You just need to eat more blueberries. To get your brain healthy, you just need to take the fish oil supplement. To get your brain healthy, you just need to take Protandim. It's just one after another pill to take or the quick fix. What are the key nutrients that you're seeing in patient recoveries that are either deficient or are necessary to get in, and how are you guys going about getting them in to these patients? And again, we're thinking kids here, we're thinking about the average person, not just people that have been concussed, but just average brain health to avoid those things, like you said, early onset dementia, early onset Parkinson's, early onset Alzheimer's.
Another good question, and that is, every single person is an individual. It's really tough to say, hey, one product is going to be great for every single person in the population. You mentioned blueberries, you mentioned Protandim, you mentioned certain supplements, and all these things are really good, whether they be antioxidants or they support glutathione or they, decrease inflammation. One of the things that I think is important is that practitioners have got to be able to maintain the art of individualizing treatment. I mean, you have to look at somebody and say, look, your weak link is X, Y, and Z. I mean, maybe it is the fact that you are dysglycemic or pre-diabetic, okay? If that's the case, blood sugar has to be in control. Or maybe you're prone for some other condition. So one of the first things that has to be done is good histories, good evaluations, lab work when necessary, a good physical examination, and then people have to individually be looked at for who they are, genetically, what they're prone for. And then, some of the things that just help with brain health is, the first thing I say is don't eat foods that you're reactive to. And something may be healthy for one individual, but it may be very, very unhealthy for another person. I mean, for me, for instance, dairy. And I'm not saying that dairy's bad or good. What I'm saying is, for me, dairy's terrible because I'm allergic to the casein and the whey proteins. They're very inflammatory in my system. So even though they may be a good source of calcium, anytime I have it, I get pro-inflamed and I don't feel right. I have mental fogginess, and I just feel like the mental edge has sort of been taken down a notch. So with my patients, I'm like, what are the triggers? What are things that are pro-inflammatory in your diet? And then high levels of antioxidants, things that will reduce the amount of systemic inflammation. And then we have all kinds of nutrients, things that will upregulate mitochondrial health, that makes the cell have energy, things that will stabilize the cell wall of a neuron like essential fatty acids. We have certain nutrients that will actually downregulate inflammation in the brain by those glial cells that I was talking about earlier. They get primed to damage the brain. So when we look at a patient, we're like, what do you individually have? What are we dealing with here? What triggers your symptoms? What triggers inflammation in your body? And you start to whittle it down a little bit and develop some skills where you can sort of individualize treatment. But there's lots of antioxidants that I like. There's lots of things that, I mean, I'm a big fan of things that upregulate glutathione, and it's a huge antioxidant within the brain, and it helps liver function, and it helps restore our barrier systems.
Is that an example of that Protandem?
Yeah, and I'm not super familiar with that product, but I know that is one of the, I think, physiological keys to that product. And we know that if your glutathione systems are depleted, you get massive oxidative stress throughout your brain, and you're just more prone to suffering all kinds of neurological illnesses. So the research is pretty deep on that particular nutrient. And the interesting thing is that it's very, very difficult to take just straight glutathione orally, which is one of the key sort of like physiological targets of certain nutrients. So we found certain nutrients that help upregulate glutathione within the system. And there's some companies that have come up with some really nice products that do a great job of just protecting the brain, sort of like a force field, to help it not suffer from oxidative stress or free radical damage so badly.
Hey, phenomenal stuff, Dr. Brock. We appreciate you so much on Living the Run, taking the time to join us. The information is absolutely stunning, and the value is so high. We hope that maybe we can have you as a regular to kind of inform so many topics that we could have hit on with regards to nervous system and just health of our overall bodies from child to elderly. But the whole goal here, Living the Run, is how do we increase that longevity in such a way as to gain quality.
You bet, guys. It's good to be on. And I guess the final thing I'd say, kind of the take-home message is, if you're out there and you've had a traumatic brain injury, there's varying degrees of injury. Some people may have the ability to recover more than others. But if you have a head injury and you have symptoms, you don't have to necessarily lose hope. You can find people who can maybe, help you gain some of that function back and treat the brain in a way, that it recuperates to an extent. I think that's the message there.
That's a great message, and that's one of the great tips and takeaways for our listeners. Thanks again so much for joining us, and again, we hope to hear from you again soon.
You bet, guys. You take it easy.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Brock. Hey, awesome stuff by Dr. Brandon Brock there, functional neurologist in Dallas, Texas. We will be right back with AJ Taves, current scout for the Washington Capitals, to talk how they are addressing these same issues in the hockey world. Back in moments.
You're listening to Living the Run on ESPN Radio 1280 The Ticket.
Friends tell friends about Perry Ford Lincoln in San Luis Obispo. Here's Angela Biles from San Luis Obispo.
At Perry Ford, I just felt instantly comfortable when I walked in.
Here's Gus Best from Paso Robles.
When I traded in the car here, they gave me the most for my car. In fact, I can honestly say it was $1,000 more than anyone else.
Here's Leota Lardner from Templeton.
For service, I always come to Perry. I had a small little accident. Perry picked it up, took care of the damages, and returned it back to me.
Here's Doug Showalter from Morro Bay.
Oh, it was so easy to buy that car. When I came in, everybody at Perry Ford kind of came together and worked the paperwork, and I was in and out of this place very quickly.
And here's William Garwood from Lockwood.
Even though we live 70 miles away, it's right on the highway. You can get right off the highway, right into the dealership, and it's well worth the trip.
For a great experience you'll be telling your friends about, visit Perry Ford Lincoln today on Los Osos Valley Road in San Luis Obispo. Call 544-5200 or click on perryfordslo.com.
Hi, it's Colin Coward here on the Central Coast. When it comes to insurance, there's only two things you need to remember: Morris and Garitano. Since 1885, they've built a tradition of earning your trust twice, at the time of purchase and the time of need. It's the largest insurance agency headquartered in the county. Morris and Garitano offers a broad range of insurance services to businesses and individuals for all your insurance needs: health, liability, auto, life, and workers' comp. Only two things you need to remember: Morris and Garitano.
The U.S. Open returns to Olympic Club in San Francisco June 11th through the 17th. Witness the game's best players and golf's toughest tests. Tickets can be purchased now at the U.S. Open website. The U.S. Open has sold out 25 years in a row, and this year's championship promises to be no exception. Get your tickets while they're available. The U.S. Open Golf Championship, June 11th through the 17th at the Olympic Club in San Francisco. Don't miss a single shot. Purchase your tickets now at usopen.com. That's usopen.com.
This is really cool, Dad.
Yep, nothing better than camping out under the stars.
You think there's any bears out here?
I don't think we have to worry about that. Look, there's the Big Dipper.
Wow, cool.
At Four Seasons Outfitters, they can help you create an outdoor family adventure.
Hey, can we try out my new fishing pole tomorrow?
Sure. Hey, want to roast another marshmallow?
Oh, yeah.
For camping and hiking equipment, for fishing and hunting gear, Four Seasons is your hometown outdoor outfitter.
Did you and Grandpa go camping when you were little?
We sure did.
Did you see any bears?
Nope, no bears.
You'll find backpacks and tents, freshwater and deep-sea fishing equipment, campfire cooking supplies, guns and ammo, everything you'll need for your next outdoor adventure.
Hi, guys.
Hi, honey.
Oh, hi, Mom.
So how are my two campers doing? Do you want me to leave the porch light on?
Maybe. Just in case there's a bear.
Even if it's in your own backyard. Four Seasons Outfitters, your outdoor adventure headquarters for more than 25 years. 432 Higuera, San Luis Obispo.
We're back with Living the Run.
Awesome interview, Paul Terek. That was fantastic stuff on brain health. Extremely impressive stuff from Dr. Brandon Brock, and insightful stuff. Something that we could take away ourselves, and just little pointers that we could add to our own lives to preserve our brains and maximize what we got.
Yeah, I think he hit on a big thing. It doesn't really matter how long it's been. I think everybody out there who's been an athlete at some point or been active, even as far back as high school, I think a lot of people can remember, one or two incidences where you may have bumped your head or a big hit in football or something where you didn't feel quite right afterwards. Like I was telling you, I ended up with a concussion or two in high school, and the funniest thing was after the CAT scan, it was like the coach was like, "Oh, okay, everything was good. All right, we'll see you at practice tomorrow," kind of thing. It was like they never thought anything about it. But it's good to hear that they're finally being proactive and they're trying to catch things early, and not only just respond to the symptoms, but they're trying to be proactive and prevent them from happening.
Absolutely. Definitely making some strides along the way when it comes to brain health. Hey, now's the time, Living the Run listeners. For those of you following us, livingtherun.com, as well as Facebook and Twitter, here's your chance to win a $20 gift card to Jaffa. Jaffa Cafe, again, voted #1 Mediterranean food 5 years in a row here in SLO. If you haven't been there and you have not met Adnan here in San Luis, they also have a new location in AG. The $20 gift card goes to either one. You've got to meet this guy. He exemplifies what it means to live the run and the way he runs that business. Just an absolutely unselfish, wonderful guy. So here is the trivia question for the day. And respond on Facebook. First correct answer on Facebook will win the $20 gift card to Jaffa. How about this? What do you think, Paul, on these questions? It looks like a lot of data. What do you think we should go with? What do you think? Anything from Dr. Brock, or should we just come up with this about how many neurons in an average brain? He talked about neurons. He talked about nerve cells. He talked about glial cells. Let's just talk about neurons themselves. Let's just put it in an approximately, listeners, how many neurons can you find in the average brain? Again, not Paul's brain, but the average brain.
I knew it was coming. I thought we'd gotten past it, but it was like it snuck up on me.
Hey, first right answer on Living the Run on Facebook there gets $20 to Jaffa. But we are joined right now, fortunate to be joined. He is currently in Minnesota, scout with the Washington Capitals NHL hockey team, ice hockey team. He's been in youth hockey, Cedar Rapids Cyclones, if I remember correctly, and even GM and coach of the Chicago Steel. He's seen hockey on all levels, played at Northeastern. Mr. AJ Taves, thanks for joining us.
Hi.
I don't know if you should be bashing Paul here about who's got the least amount of neurons in the brain after you were a defensive lineman at a $140 at Lynbrook High School, so you might want to ease up on him.
Fantastic point.
Thanks. I like this guy already. Best guest we've ever had.
Well, just wait till we get him in studio. AJ, we just got off the phone with Dr. Brandon Brock talking about big news out there in concussion world, both in the NFL, but you guys are definitely seeing in the NHL. Sidney Crosby making the news, and I know it's happening. Hey, what is the talk in the locker room out there? How are the guys themselves, the athletes, addressing these issues, and does it seem like there's a level of concern among them now?
I for sure there is, and I think in the past, similar to other sports, you used to get, you ding your head up. I mean, first of all, it's hard. You can't see what's going on. It's not like your knee where you bang your knee and you go, gosh, my knee feels weird. It's loose. You just don't know. And they used to, just tell you to suck it up, and you just got dinged, and you just got your bell rung. And I think now guys are a little bit more. I think more than anything, it's the unknown. They know that it's not great. It's definitely not good when you're getting concussions, and it's not good when you bang your head on anything. But I think the unknown right now is kind of a huge factor. And I think guys now are looking. I mean, shoot, let's face it. The guys in the NHL. I mean, the guy making the least money is making $500,000 a year. So if these guys are fairly smart with their money, they're going to be set for a long time, and they're thinking, well, what am I going to do after? How am I going to? What is life after hockey going to look like if my if my bell's been rung too many times? So I think they're definitely taking notice here of what's going on.
No, but you're out there scouting now, so let's kind of step backwards away from the guys in the league, and let's look at the guys trying to make it to the league. Are you seeing them taking the same amount of precautions? And then do you also notice a difference between, say an American hockey player and somebody who might be from like the Eastern Bloc, or from over in Europe? Do you notice a difference in the way that they will either report their injury or take care of themselves or handle themselves?
I don't have firsthand knowledge of what guys are doing, but I have talked with friends, and I know guys that have played in the minors, and it's similar to football. They used to always say it's hard to make the team from the bench, and it's hard to make the team from the dark room too. And not to mention when you're younger, you start getting a lot of concussions. I mean, I think what they've seen in guys is that you get concussions, and depending on how fast you come back, you tend to get more concussions. And it's all, I think some guys, I think it's a biological thing. I think some guys are just more apt to get more concussions than others. But it's definitely a red flag. I mean, we're getting ready for the draft right now, and that's one of the buzzwords I always ask guys about injuries. Injuries that I know about, or I even ask them if they've been injured. And the second question I ask is concussions. Have you had any? How many have you had? How many games did you miss? How much time were you out? Any side effects? And I take all the notes down, and we send them to our doctors, and then our doctors kind of take it from there. And we got to know. We're looking to draft a kid and invest a lot into him, and we need to know if this kid's going to be able to, if he's going to make it or not.
Well, take it.
To this kind of stuff.
Well, take us through, AJ. You played years back. You played youth hockey. Then you played into college, and then you've been in the coaching side of this thing too, with some of the young kids and so forth. Is there a change in rules? Has there been a change, any kind of changing in the guard with equipment? Is there a lot of resistance to this kind of stuff, or is it still just kind of being blown over, and just not really a big topic of conversation?
You know what? People talk about. I hear this quite a bit about. Guys are faster, they're bigger, they're stronger. The collisions are at higher impact, and all of that is true. I really think that the biggest thing that has happened is that guys have had, and again, I don't want to make it sound like I want to make sure I'm sensitive to the guys that have these things, but I think what's happened is guys have now had concussions where they've had like major issues. I mean, Crosby could be an example. There's other guys where they have light sensitivity. They get dizzy. And that's not just getting your bell rung where you're kind of, feeling a little silly for a second, but then you regain. These are things that are lasting, guys, weeks, months at a time. My guess is, and this is a guess, I think this stuff has happened for a long time in sports. You can argue that the equipment now is better than ever. I think the equipment being better than ever, along with guys getting faster and bigger, are kind of almost a wash. I mean, my dad played football back in the day, and I've looked at his helmets that they played with. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, we could probably come up something together in your studio with whatever's there that would have given him better protection than what he wore. I think a lot of it has just been people and doctors and staff going, hey, like being sensitive to light, that's not normal. And that's not right. We don't know what's going on up there, but there's something not right. Having headaches 7 days straight or 2 weeks in a row, that's not normal. And
give us a take on that.
People are still trying to figure it out right now.
Well, give us a take on that. Your dad did play back in the 70s. You're being nice and humble there, but your father did play for the Pittsburgh Steelers and won 4 Super Bowls, I know, with them. And those guys were using different equipment at the time. Dr. Brandon Brock kind of suggested to us that, just as you did, that these head injuries have been going on since then and even before. They just weren't talked about nearly as much. But what's your dad's take on the whole thing with guys that are now been out of the league like himself for the last 30 years? What's he seeing in some of those friends of his that played?
My dad doesn't. He doesn't talk a lot. Rex has met him a few times. He doesn't talk a lot about football or kind of what he did, and I kind of have to pry information out of him. But one of his teammates, Mike Webster, and if you watch ESPN, they've had Webby on and pictures of him, and he's kind of one of the worst case scenarios with that happened is and what they think has happened is he played center, was a big time player, and they think just after repeated blows to the head, it helped kind of kick in Alzheimer's and various other probably brain issues, and he kind of lived a really sad life toward the end of his career. I think his brain kind of went, and I think some guys were taking advantage of him financially and different things, and those are real. I mean, it's real. What my dad actually thinks, I would test my dad deep down as hoping that this doesn't happen to him.
Absolutely.
He'll never say that, but my guess is he's seeing his own teammates go down.
Absolutely.
And, I don't. Like I said, I think he just kind of doesn't talk about it. I think that's what happened. That's happened for years. Guys just didn't talk about it. Now it's being talked about, and it should be.
Well, absolutely, and we definitely appreciate you coming on, and that was the whole point on this show, Living the Run, is we're trying to bring up things that just simply are not being talked about, they're not being communicated at a high enough level, and people may be suffering along the way. I'll just say this, Paul and I both have boys, but you may be fortunate to have the 3 girls there, less contact sports to be affecting that.
That's not a
brain.
trade-off. He's got 3 girls. There's no way. Because he's going to actually have to commit a crime maybe when they turn like 16, 17, 18. We don't have to do that, Our kid might not be able to walk straight, might not be able to stay in a lighted room, but he's got way more to worry about. No way. Not an even trade-off.
I think one of the big things, and I heard someone talk about this the other day, and we were kind of a couple of guys, and we were kind of talking, where does this all fall? And I think the biggest thing is, you guys got boys, and you know what, if I end up having a boy or my girls want to play hockey, I'm not going to discourage them from doing that. But I think parents need to know, coaches and parents need to know what's going on. And really coaches is where I would really put. Parents need to know, but really coaches do, because during the course of the game, if you have a kid in a hockey game that gets hit in the first period and he's dizzy, and the coach is one of the old school guys and says, hey, just go back out there and do your thing, that's not right. And there's such a high pressure now, even in youth sports, which is kind of gross, but that's another subject for another day. But really, the coaches have to be looking out for this kind of stuff, and they need to. They know. They know when a kid's had his bell rung. I've had it happen when I was coaching, and it's like, hey, you know what? You're sitting.
Absolutely.
You're sitting. I don't know what's going on. but I sure as heck am not going to be on the bench when something bad happens. So you sit here and we'll get you taken care of after the game, and have someone look at you that actually knows what they're doing, because I sure as heck don't.
AJ, thanks for the honesty. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for giving us a little insight into the world of hockey and the world of what's going on there, head injury. And as you and I have said in the past, always wanted to be on the radio with you, and it was a joy to do it. So thanks, and we look forward to having you again in the future.
You got it. Paul, if you ever need, I'll give you my number for speed dial if you need to keep Rex on the straight and narrow over there.
Oh, I appreciate it. I'm going to get on you after the show here and get that from you.
Sounds good.
Thanks, AJ.
We'll see you guys. You got it.
Hey, when we return, still no winner yet. Maybe the question was just too hard, Paul. How many neurons does an average brain have?
I mean, you asked a trivia question with the word neuron in it.
Let's just do this. Let's do this one instead. When you are born, your brain weighs about how many pounds? We will get you the answer after that. That is to win a $20 gift certificate to Jaffa Cafe. We will wrap up the show with tips and takeaways in moments.
You're listening to Living the Run on ESPN Radio 1280 The Ticket.
When you were a kid, you had all sorts of toys. Toy cars, boats, trucks, entire toy boxes full of fun. Of course, you never really outgrow your toys, do you? It's just that now, instead of a box full, you have a garage full. Cars, trucks, boats, motorcycles, ATVs, and more. As you get older, your love of toys just gets stronger. So protect those toys the best way possible by switching to Allstate. An Allstate agent can help do the switching, paperwork, bundle all your policies together, and even find you a bunch of discounts. So if you love your toys, make sure you protect your toys by making one call to an Allstate agent.
Protect all your toys with Allstate. Find an agent near you at allstate.com today. Subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Property and Casualty Insurance Company and Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and their affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Dollar for dollar, nobody protects you like Allstate.
We're back with Living the Run.
When you were born,
Friends tell friends about Perry.
Your brain weighs how many pounds?
When I'm born, I'm going to say 4.
One
no,
pound.
wait, no, God, no. Wait, 2.5.
1 pound, about a pound when you're born. When you were born, and we do have a winner, $20 gift card going to Ben. You know who you are, Ben. We will send that to you ASAP from Jaffa Cafe. Enjoy a tremendous meal. Tips and takeaways, real quick, Paul.
I'm sorry, that was the worst guess ever. Babies weigh 6 pounds. I guess their brain weighs 4. Tips and takeaway. I think the biggest thing out of today, or the best advice, was don't find a cookie cutter doctor. You know, you got one chance at life. You know, don't go to a guy that's just running you through the mill and giving you the cookie cutter program. Get individualized stuff. Get things that are going to help you, that take all of your circumstances into account.
Absolutely. I love that. And takeaway for me, too, is there's hope. You know, you don't have to deal with some of these symptoms. There's hope to improve. There's hope to make progress, and pretty darn cool. Hey, next week we are going to be talking Mud Mash. Mud Mash, it's happening up at Santa Margarita Lake this weekend. We will hear all the fun things out of that tremendous, tremendous race. Thank you for living the run with us.